Uncertainty as billions of dollars of federal funding is put in limbo after the White House orders a pause on all loans and grant disbursements.
The confusion keeps spreading tonight as a federal judge has intervened, blocking the Trump administration's promised freeze on federal funds.
The administrative stay pauses the freeze until Monday. The pause potentially impacts trillions of dollars in government spending and halts public programs that affect millions of Americans. The plan caused confusion and panic among organizations that depend on Washington for financial support.
Now, administration officials have said that federal assistance to individuals would not be impacted. That includes Social Security, Medicare, food stamps, student loans, and scholarships.
Shauna Kalafi has been tracking how our state is responding to these developments.
Now, we've been calling and emailing all day to get in contact with schools and government agencies, trying to find out how this could all affect us here in Nevada. So here's what we know so far. Governor Joe Lombardo's office says it is in communication with the White House and will participate in a larger meeting with the Office of Management and Budget to discuss those potential impacts to our state agencies. Now, the governor says the programs that provide direct benefits to Nevadans, including Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP food assistance, and the Head Start pre-K program, will continue without disruption. Now, before the judge blocked that order, CCSD told us they're working with the Department of Education to assess potential impacts. UNLV also saying it's carefully evaluating how those recent federal policy changes may potentially impact the university. We also heard from the Nevada System of Higher Education saying Pell Grants, direct loans, and other programs are explicitly excluded from this pause. They say beyond financial assistance, the directive may also affect other federally funded activities, but the full scope of those impacts still not yet clear. And we've also reached out to our local law enforcement agencies, including Metro, North Las Vegas, and Nevada State Police, to find out how this could all affect their departments. We'll let you know once we hear back. John?
Shauna, thank you. And federal workers who do not want to return to the office will be offered buyouts. The Trump administration has ordered federal workers, many of whom had flexible work arrangements following the pandemic, back to the office to work in person. Workers who opt to accept a buyout will need to resign by February 6th. They would receive severance paid through September 30th. The heads of the federal agencies were told in just the last day that this would be coming, the official said.